I've been in interviewing positions where I'm the candidate and I ask what challenges they may have and they say, we don't. I think, is that a red flag? Doesn't matter if you're top performer, you've always got space to improve. Very similar to a golf swing. There's always areas to improve, and I think that's what sets apart very best is their ability to focus on iterations. The ability to dial in intensely, get the work that's required to be done, but also zoom out and appreciate the bigger picture. I think that's an important.
I'm intrigued, right? I put up an advert around this particular role and sort of explained what it was. And I actually had about 250 applications.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of, about 250 people applied. Majority of them weren't our requirement, like in terms of you from SaaS and you've done X, Y, Z, so that they get automatically disqualified. But I probably had like 40 to 50 people that came through. But I am curious, when you saw that, what was it that made you think, that's different, that's kind of cool, I'm going to put my hat in the ring for that?
Good question. Well, I do have a lot of friends who are recruiters, and my initial impression of recruitment was, there is a stereotypical thing around recruitment that I was very aware of and cognizant of, possibly a little bit closed-minded around. I sort of boxed that off as that's my stereotype and then that's what it is. But as I sort of opened that box and went into it, I sort of realized, well, you're actually adding a lot of value to organizations that you may work for or work with. And I think it's for my personal and professional development, a very good skill to know how to work with people and build teams of people to execute on a go-to-market strategy and help companies grow. And so that was probably what really struck me. And I thought, I don't know a lot, but let's dive into it.
Did the value proposition of ex-SaaS salespeople, was that a bit of a draw card for you?
Oh, absolutely. I think you have you seen that Steve Jobs thing where he's lecturing at, I think it might be MIT, and he goes, all of you are consultants but have no experience. And I'm sure you'll find it, but that kind of struck me a little bit. Like there's a lot of consultants out there that may not ever see the full life cycle of the project, the company, or actually know the role in the same detail as Bluebird does. And that was probably one of the first things that struck me is the industry experience.
It's funny, if you look at the Bluebird website, there's actually a little video that plays, which is, have you noticed that when we look at X Factor, all of the judges that are judging all of these singers are actually ex-industry. They've all been in seat as a professional singer or producer, etc. The reason for that is when you've been truly in seat, you can truly identify and understand what great looks like. Yeah,
well, I think Simon Cohen may be a little bit less amenable than Bluebird, but yeah, I agree. he's pretty stiff, but I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And when you think about 2 to 3 years down the line, you've been speaking to friends and family. What do you think success looks like for you? What do you want to achieve from a career perspective with us?
Yeah, entrepreneurship was something that excited me quite a bit. The ability to roll with new ideas. There's always a core function within a business, but get your house in order and you can start exploring additional avenues. And I think that's what excites me the most is that, I don't know, if I was to go back into the tech sales sector, there would be a very, standard expectation. But I think Bluebird's value proposition is that the sky's the limit as far as, how do we help organizations with people?
I did one reference call with Mako.
Yeah, Mako.
And something I picked up from that reference call, when he was talking about you, he said like your work ethic is second to none. He says that you're just absolutely dedicated to just working really, really, really hard to achieve your goals. And it's interesting when I meet you, you seem very laid back and you're not that sort of full on, intense from the outside, intense go-getter, I'm going to go smash this out of the park. But actually, obviously, your former manager said that hard work is his number one asset.
That's very generous of Mako. He managed me at AgriWeb, and a lot of professional development that I have has come from him. And his work ethic is exactly the same. We'd often speak about how that will be one of the hardest things moving into a managerial position is that your team may not want to match the same level of work ethic, which, you know, that's fine. Some people do want that 9 to 5 and nothing more. But I think what he really got to was, at the end of the day, it's what motivates you. For me, it's quite intrinsic. I'm not extrinsically motivated. It's what I know I can get out of myself, and that's probably not going to be something that I bring out of my personality when I meet people. Is, you know, I work so hard, I'm really intense, and I just don't. Yeah, I think being really laid back, but having that ability to focus in is really key. Ned Brockman would be a perfect example of someone who's like this.
Do you know Ned?
I don't know Ned. I see him in the park sometimes. He runs with his dog or whatnot. But he's very always smiling. But, you know, this guy has like a very deep effort and drive. Yeah.
And I think there's a correlation between, for me, because I've been an ex-sports person myself, and I love sports and that challenge and going out there to achieve something, and knowing how much grit and determination goes into like an Ironman. I did a half, as I mentioned, and my best mate's done a couple of the full, and they're intense, right? Like my hat taken off to people that have done that. And it's often people that are a bit older. You know, it's often in their 30s, their 40s. I'd say for an Ironman, I'm not an expert.
Average age might be 40.
I was going to say, I'd say it's probably about 40.
Yeah.
And I think half of that is because you need to earn that mental toughness. Yeah,
definitely.
To get there.
Yeah, 100%. But then again, I do think anyone could apply themselves and get that done. But probably the similarity into business is that you will fail. Sports, you'll fail, you'll lose, you'll get injured, you won't be able to participate. Like, there's a lot of similarities that you know come into business. You'll lose deals, you may lose jobs, you may fail over and over again. But I think it's all about persistence and perseverance. You know, at Agrab, the founders there met rowing actually, and they would try and bring these analogies to the team. And sometimes it stuck with me because I understood it, but a lot of the time, they were like the last quarter of a rowing race is where you hurt the most, and you just have to keep pushing. And everyone's like, "Wow, that's intense." But I understood that, you know, that's the sort of intensity that you need to bring to the table.
I remember with that sense of accomplishment when I got over the finish line in my half. In my head, before I started training, I thought that it's impossible. It's impossible. I'm 130 kilos. Oh. That's ridiculous.
Clydesdale is what they classify as. Yeah.
And the funny thing was, I not only was I a Clydesdale is over 100 kilos. I had to check in at race day, and I was 126 kilos on race day. Wow. All right, that's a lot of weight to lug around a course.
Yeah.
The swim is okay, you float.
Sure.
But that run after the bike is tough. But that sense of, I just did this, I can go off there and do anything.
And it's done. I mean, the last whatever push is required to get over the finish line, and then you're over it and you think, oh, why did I complain so much in my mind? So I think that's going to be life in general, right?
Yeah. Just that grit, that determination, that
I think that's eminent. It's what McKeel's like, right? He's very focused on the core role or core function, but I think he has this capacity to zoom out at the big picture. And I think we related quite well on that, you know, the ability to dial in intensely, get the work that's required to be done, but also zoom out and appreciate the bigger picture. I think that's an important.
Yeah, he's got an incredible capacity for both strategic and tactical.
Oh, yes.
And operational. Mm-hmm. Like, I wish I had a fraction of what he's got from an operational perspective. Like, you got to know me a little bit. I'm a bit all over the place. But I get stuff done. But
many plates spinning at the same time.
Many plates, and I surround myself with good people. I think that's my style. That's nice. Any questions that you've got for me on anything?
I wasn't expecting that. Questions for you,
or even just generally on anything that's cropped up over the last couple of days.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited to understand how the European market operates and how that's different to APAC. I actually asked Makil this question. I said, why Australia? He did say it was you. Like, that is the reason why Bluebird is in Australia and to be APAC. And I said, why the Netherlands? I mean, there's a more aggressive market in the US and North America. Maybe Asia has a equivalently aggressive market for people in hiring and recruitment. So that's probably one thing I'm eager to explore. He described that the Netherlands was a more stable growth market for tech startups, and therefore it was all about just chipping away at that same block. In Australia, he really at the end of the day described it's the right people in the right place doing the right sort of jobs, and that was why. But I'm curious to explore that aspect.
Like it was in my opinion, a perfect storm. Him and his business partner were A-star players, both of them. They were just exceptional. Like the first two founders of the business, and the next two were exceptional. And then the first 6 months was COVID, and they did nothing. But then that was the hiring boom after that.
Yeah.
And right place, right time, right vision, right execution, right operations, right tenacity. Everything was perfect in terms of what you wouldn't want anything else to be differently, I don't think. And then on top of that, they've really cracked the VC world. So they've gone in there, and candidly, I haven't had those conversations just yet here. I think there's a lot of I think there's more competition in Australia than they've got in the Netherlands. I think there's 2 to 3 other SaaS vendors, like recruiting companies, that have got good brands over here. But at the same time, there's a lot of business for everyone, right? I think if you just do the right things, I definitely want to disrupt and win more than my fair share of business. But in a rising tide, it floats all boats, and I think the next couple of years at least is the tide's going to be rising, and execute with precision and tenacity and integrity and professionalism, then we will we'll be successful.
And possibly that would be exploring a whole lot of different avenues of how to add value and disrupt, and
partnerships, like building partnerships, a partnership network, building like VC relationships, building a community, referrals, business development, going out there and actually doing some of that hard work ourselves of knocking on doors and trying to introduce ourselves.
It sounds like work ethic will be the core attribute.
Work ethic and discipline. Yeah, like you can have a lot of autonomy to run your business as you want.
Sounds like you could potentially waste a lot of time by the same thing. Yeah,
you could. Yeah, and you need to be disciplined. I think that if I was to counsel myself, it would be more prepared, prepare more effectively the start of the week, what you're going to be doing, block out hours of where you should be doing activity, and plan accordingly. Otherwise, like the phone rings and then you take that and you don't actually, you take a B priority rather than the A priority of actually building a strategy. And then you're 3 months down the line and you haven't actually built your strategy, but you've taken lots of B and C priority calls.
Sure.
So like that's the piece which I'm trying to balance so far.
Interesting. And has that been part of the past roles that you've done? Like what is the biggest difference in your experience to date with Bluebird different to past roles?
It's similar, to be honest. Like my role with Dado, I was the regional leader here, and I had a lot of autonomy to grow and build. I would say investments in GTM and go to market and hiring. We had product market fit. I think we got product market fit here where we are, but it's really just building the outbound motion and having, like, if we talk on the rowing analogy, having everyone just rowing in unison so that we can absolutely optimize and drive the greatest efficiency possible. With Chris and I, we've just been like scattergun approach to try to do what we can. And I think like I'm looking forward to next year is trying to just tighten up a couple of loose bolts.
Iteration. It's always the key.
Just continually iterate and get better and better.
Yeah. Either daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis. I think iteration is what drives improvement.
And inspect what you expect and even just looking at metrics. Like
Sure.
I've been poor at doing that. I'm not a systems update CRM sort of guy myself. I should be. I need to get better, but I can't. I need to do that. I need to lead by example, and I also we need to do that as we scale. Otherwise, there's going to be water leaking. It'll be a leaky bucket.
I think what struck me very much with yourself, Chris, and Akil were that we've got some very obvious things we can work on right now. I've been in interviewing positions where I'm the candidate and I ask what challenges they may have, and they say, well, we don't really, apart from being able to do more business. And you think, oh, is that a red flag? Or, have you recognized parts of your business that could be improved yet? I think it doesn't matter if you're top performer, you've always got space to improve. possibly that was like a really nice humility, integrity piece that really struck me with Bluebird was like, we're scratching the surface here. There are a million things we could be doing that are done differently, done with an extra layer of focus, preparedness, all those sorts of things. And that seems pretty exciting. Yeah, I mean, very similar to a golf swing. It might just be like might be okay, but there's always areas to improve. And I think that's what sets apart like the very best is their ability to focus on iterations.